Welcome back from the winter break, class. It's a spring semester, and well, I've been gone for a little bit longer. I've been on a 7th-month sabbatical, but now I'm back and ready to teach you. Where are we? We're in the desert. Why are we in the desert? This word, Latinx. What does it mean? Is it a Tinder for Latino people? Is it an iPhone just for Catholic priests? Who the hell knows? But yeah, I do. That's why we're here, right? Let's get into this. Basically, Latinx is a newish term, but it falls in line with a bunch of other terms that try to cram a whole different bunch of types of people into one box that we can mark on a census form. Honestly, it's just another term that has been created by some people to call a bunch of other people. I think a lot of people get confused. There's a lot of people just like upset, like unreasonably upset. Don't know why. Because there's a bunch of other terms that fall in line with the ideas that they're upset about. Let's step back a little bit, okay? We're gonna start with me, because I do fall under the umbrella of Latinx as it's being used. So let's get into who I am. Okay, my identity is a little complicated, so try to keep up. I will try to keep it concise. So, I am what you would call, or what I call, a Chicano. I spell it with an X. I used to spell it with the CH. X is kind of reaffirming our indigenous identity, and you might look at me and be like, Alec, you can't be indigenous. You look white. Well, yeah, I have a lot of white ancestry, but that does not negate my indigenous ancestors and their experiences and what led to me. So, again, I'm a little confusing. Puro Chicano. If you would ask me, hey, what do you think of yourself? What do you categorize yourself as? It's Chicano, again, with the X. That's not a race, it's more of an ethnic and a culture thing, and it's very complicated. So Chicano comes from Mexicano, as in Mexicano, as in the Mexica, as in the people who started the Aztec Empire, which is also a whole different conversation. We got it so far? All right, Mexicano. So, I don't know how many people are familiar with US history, because the more I meet US citizens, the more I realize they don't know nothing about the country. There was this war that was fought for the independence of Texas, and it started this other war called the Mexican-American War. And no, the Mexican-American War was not a gang fight between Sureños and Norteños, so.
Open your eyes, Antonio.
Back to it. So, there used to be a lot of the United States that once was Mexico. And the thing about that is, when it became the United States, all those people came with it. That was part of the provisions. And that's actually part of why the line stopped where it did. There was white people in political offices that didn't want as many indigenous Mexicans. They said, there will be way too many of these brown people here. With that being said, there was a large amount of people that came up with that land. This includes California, Texas, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado, up to Oregon, Nevada, and my home state, Arizona. Let's go Suns. So that means Chicano is a Mexicano born north of the border, because Mexicanos don't think of us as paisas, as paisanos. We're not from the country. My family's been from the Sonoran Desert. My great-grandmother was from Sonora, Mexico, and my family's been in Arizona for a long, long time, depending on what branch of my family. Now, this is where things get interesting. So the Spanish moved here and they created a labeling system for everybody that fell under their crown. So this is where labeling started. They came here and there's two types of people. Gente con razón, with reason. Gente sin razón, without reason. Guess who my Spanish ancestors thought they were and who my indigenous ancestors were thought of. So it goes deeper than that. Not only were there labels, and there were labels for different mixtures. So my dad is a quintessential mestizo. His father, much more indigenous. His mother, much more Euro. I don't know what mine would be, because it's this like admixture of a mestizo with basically just a European person. But my mom's not Spanish, so that's another loop that everybody gets thrown for. Keep up, it's complicated. Try to tell you. They were all labeled mestizo. If my dad had gotten with an indigenous woman, their kid would be a coyote. My homie Leon's like coyote or lobo, because he's mostly Dene, but one of his grandparents is Spanish. And not only that, it came with this racial determinism. Like, if you're a mestizo kid, you're gonna be like this. Like, if your mom is this and your dad is this, you're gonna be this. And it came with all these paintings. It was like some sort of Pokemon caste system. It was a little different than the racial structure in the United States or in the French colonial system. So, okay, but whatever's whatever, because once the lines got set up here, I'm too Mexican to be American, and I'm too American to be Mexican. We straddle the line. We're Chicano. Our culture is different. That being said, I'm from Arizona.
Yo vengo de Arizona y lo estoy buscando.
No, man, they went to Fresno, ese.
¿Qué?
Wait right there, okay? I'll let you in. Wait.
¿Quién le estás llamando güey?
My family is way more similar to Paisas than my California cousins. I was looking at this picture and you can see that my dad's cousins are like straight, like slick back hair, white tee, probably had khakis on the bottom, and my family looked like they came right over the line. So we're ranchero, you know, like my family was a back and forth across the line a bunch. Like we weren't in the city like that. Tucson used to be different. All right, so this is where things get complicated, right? My dad's mom's European. His dad was indigenous. They were both Hispanic.
What?
You know why? Because they spoke Spanish. That's what Hispanic means. All of them were Hispanic. My grandmother, my grandfather, my grandmother's father, who, man, he looked like just some German fool. His name was Jesus, but you'd think it'd be Johannes. My grandparents, Hispanic. My dad, Hispanic. Me, Hispanic. My Spanish is really bad. I grew up in Los Cabos, you know? So my Spanish is really bad, but that still means I'm Hispanic. All of us fall under the umbrella of Hispanic. Hispanic means Spanish speaking. So my friend in Spain, she's Hispanic. She's also Spanish. Sorry, people east of the Mississippi, Spanish means people from Spain. Using it to refer to us is confusing, but do your thing. Now, Hispanic is a word that the census created for referring to those who speak Spanish. So you could have Boricuas, Catrachos, Paisas, all of them are Hispanic. But here's the interesting thing, there's non-Hispanic Latinos. Latino refers to from Latin America. So walking around referring to all of us as Hispanic would be like calling a Jamaican person an English person, or a Haitian person a French person. But that's what's happening. And even more so if you walk around calling us Spanish, because that's not confusing at all. My friend from Spain is Hispanic and Spanish, but she's not Latina. Sorry, Sylvia, love you, but Latina refers to being of Latin American descent, i.e. this part of the world, right here, like this part here. I'll definitely apply the term Latino to non-Hispanic Latinos who live outside of Hispanic countries. I think of Brazilian as Latino. I think of Belizeans as Latino. I think of Haitians as Latino. Anyone who lives in Latin America, because we have similar colonial past. But I know that there are different terms that fall under it. Latino is a pan term that only exists in the modern era as well. Because before the lines were drawn between all of our countries that made us different, it was New Spain. And before that, it was whatever the peoples who called each one of those places was, because it was indigenous before that. These terms have evolved for a need with evolving cultures. That's pretty much it. So now there are people of Latin American origin that someone like the United States wants to refer to. So instead of being like, oh, you're from Mexico? Okay, what do you call yourself? Oh, you're from Puerto Rico? Okay, what do you call yourself? Oh, you're from Honduras? What do you call yourself? Instead it's Latino or Hispanic. Now, let's also think about this. There are non-Hispanic Latinos that live in Spanish-speaking countries, people that still speak their indigenous languages. That's a non-Hispanic Latino that lives in a Hispanic country. Yeah. Confusing. Also, I just want to shout out Filipinos. I don't know what they consider themselves, but they're definitely partially Hispanic. And I think of them similarly as Latinos, even though they're not part of Latin America, they're on like this part of the world. Because the same thing happened to them. First, the Spanish came in and colonized them, and then during neo-imperialism, the United States came and helped get them independence. So, almost the exact same thing. And shout out to the Filipinos that helped with the United Farm Workers movement. Y'all started it. Chicanos just jumped on to support y'all. Okay, so Latino versus Latinx, or Latino versus Latinx. I think Adrian Bailon pointed it out very poignantly on The Real.
Most people who use the term just look for opportunities to just be progressive, and they also are looking for opportunities to be inclusive.
Latinx has been created to become more inclusive of those that don't fall into the gender binary. Latinx was created by, I don't know, I'm gonna say in the United States, probably by Latino individuals that didn't fit into the gender binary, or those that were trying to make more inclusivity, which I'm all for. You know, even though I think of myself as Chicano, because I am a cisgender male and that's how I view myself. I was in Mecha. We're trying to be more inclusive of the non-masculine energy that was in the room, because the civil rights movement that we came from has a long history of being patriarchal and being machismo. And so in an attempt to try to break away from that, we use terms like y'all instead of guys, or we would say Chicanao with the at sign instead of Chicano or Chicana, you know? Latinx is created for those that just don't think of themselves as an A or an O, you know? They don't, that's how it is. And you know what, it takes some getting used to, but what's the matter? Humans have had multiple genders and different style genders for a long time. Colonialism has convinced us that there's only two genders, and that's just straight facts, sorry. Western European Judeo-Christianity, wow, that sounded supercalifragilisticexpialidocious,
Even though they celebrated something quite atrocious,
has been pushed on indigenous people across the world for a long time. And I can think of examples from India, Africa, the Americas, where the gender binary that we have grabbed onto in this culture didn't exist before European invasion. So that is what it is. I'm not really a big fan of the word Latinx, but it's not for any reasons that many people are. One reason I've heard, it's not a real word. What does that mean? Like, words have been being made up for literally millennia. We started out speaking clicks. We had to invent all of our words. All of our words are made up. Y'all is a word, and it used to be more informed. In fact, in Spanish, there's vosotros, which is a super old way of speaking, but it's in grammatical form. Now I'm getting off topic. But Latinx is a real word, because someone makes it up and we understand it. Sorry. Some people associate it with not being authentic, which if you're born in this country and you're Latino or Hispanic, guess what? People back home are gonna view you as non-authentic, so.
Senor Wessler, are we fired too?
Not the Mexicans.
I'm half Mexican.
Not the illegal Mexicans.
Calling someone who thinks of themselves as Latinx non-authentic, coming from someone who isn't from a Latin American country, come on, man. That's exactly what we get. Our authenticity came at all the time. You're gonna do that to someone else because they choose to call themselves. What are you gonna tell me when I think of myself as Chicano? We used to get super upset when people would call themselves Spanish, because for us it's like, so you're not proud of where you're from. Now, then I realize, oh, okay, people in New York and stuff like that, they just call Latinos Spanish. Now, the only thing that I've heard people say is they don't like it because it's colonial. I don't like it because it's anglicized, but guess what? Because I'll say this to myself, Spanish is a colonial language as well. There's a vast majority of us, including a vast majority of our ancestors, that had Spanish thrust upon them. And we gotta understand it's much deeper than that. Because those of us who are Mexican, just because someone's white Mexican or Afro-Latino, and I don't even cover that because it gets complex. Afro-Latino, literally, like, people be, like, their heads are exploding about it. It means a Latin American of African descent. Keep up with me. Latin American refers to modern day countries. African descent refers to race. It's hard. We're getting there, because don't like the term Latinx because it's anglicized. But again, Spanish is a colonial language that got thrust upon all of us as well, including people of African descent and people of indigenous descent. And anybody who moves into these modern countries is assumed to start speaking Spanish as well. So there's a lot of Asian immigrants coming into Latin America. Asian Latinos, yes, they exist. And I'm not talking about an Asian American and a Latino American getting together. I'm talking about an Asian person who moved to Latin America and had a child there, and now their child is Asian Latino. People move, people migrate. We're conflating race with ethnicity and nationality, and they're all different things. Again, my race is mostly European, but my partner, she's Afro-Latina. Our child is just an amalgamation of all of our ancestors, and we could be to create our daughter. And that's beautiful. And her brother, he is beautifully himself as well with his father's DNA. We're getting tripped up on the wrong things, guys. I've been there. So hopefully this message reaches you well. These terms that they create for us already exist in Spanish, like Hispanic. Just say Hispano. Hispano, that's what we call ourselves. You don't like Latinx? Latine. It exists in Spanish. This is a non-gendered term for explaining something that is Latino, Latina, Latinx. Get off of the people that want to be included. Esa raza. We gotta include them. Inclusion. Let me go through my notes, because people change up like dimes and quarters.
Look at it closely. Look at it closely. It's my fault, huh?
Okay, Latinx. I like Latino. I'm trying to say Latine. It doesn't, it's a new word for me. I don't like Latinx, but that is what it is. I don't mind when people use it though. If someone wants to refer to themselves as Latinx, because again, these are ethnicities. This is a culture. It's not race. It's not tied to race. Latin Americans came from all corners of this world. The Americas, Africa, Asia, and all over Europe too. Irish people, French people, Italians, Germans. Where do you think the accordion came from? Corridos or polka? It's Mexican polka. Hold on, my daughter's awake. All right, to conclude, here's a glossary of terms. Latino, someone from Latin America. Hispanic, someone who speaks Spanish. Spanish, someone from Spain. Latinx, a term to replace the gendered binary Latino, Latina. Chicano, a Mexican born north of the border. Yeah. Make room for people. Make room for our gente. That's why I like the term Latine. I'm trying to use it more. It's a pan-identity, because there's a lot of instilled nationalism within our borders. Our borders aren't even as old as the United States. We barely gained our independence from Spain, and we've got all this nationality and hostility towards each other. We're all the same. We're an admix of indigenous, European, African, and Asian DNA and cultures and history. That's it.
Happy New Year!
I wish we had like confetti or something.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you guys for the ones that, you know, we see.
Yes, make a New Year's resolution to watch more Under the Sun TV.
And you're not just a subscriber. You are family.
Your
you are
community.
the community. You push. It's like a pay
You're
it
our
forward type
support.
vibe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, yes. Mwah. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We're not actually gonna drink this. It's not real. It's not really New Year's either.